your audio video on your own computer, and then when it's done, it mixes it.
Well, that's
so like the quality's good and it's cheap.
So we're recording now, Max, if you want to.
All right, guys, welcome to episode 8 of Player Cards Podcast. I'm excited for our guests today. We have Ryan and Mike Gresh. They're here to talk about their growing company, the Feel Good Lab, and we're here with the Fast Food Academy as always. And would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Me first?
Younger brother first.
All right. Yep. So my name's Mike. I'm the middle of five kids. Ryan's the eldest brother, and I'm the only one that sort of followed my dad's footsteps and joined his compounding pharmacy and functional medicine practice. So I've been working with him for 6 years now, and we can talk a little bit about compounding pharmacy and how that's different than normal retail pharmacy. But
Mike, how old are you?
I'm 30.
Okay, so what part do you play in this business? He said you followed his footsteps.
Well, the funny thing is, so my dad, when I was growing up, I'm only 6 years older, so 36, but it's like a drastic difference in what we saw out of my dad. So he owned a conventional pharmacy. My grandpa was a pharmacist, aunts and uncles, like that's the family business. Conventional pharmacy at the time is when CVS and Walgreens were kind of like taking over, and family-owned pharmacies really couldn't compete anymore. So he couldn't afford to even hire another pharmacist. So I didn't see him. He never came to a basketball game, nothing. He was working. The only time I saw him was when I went to work with him. And he's working, pharmacies are open, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and then he'd have to stay and do the books and all that stuff. So I'd be there till like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. just working with him.
Helping him.
And I'm like, this is hell.
Yeah, you don't want any part of that.
I want nothing to do with this. So I went off and studied mechanical engineering, got into the aerospace industry, did that for about a decade. But it all changed because what Mike saw out of my dad was, in 99, he's like, this sucks. I don't even have time to actually help patients. And even if I did, we're prescribing medicines that are making them sicker. So he's seeing this community, at the time it was in Newington, Connecticut, like people coming in getting sicker and sicker. Opioid epidemic is on the rise, and it's like, whoa, I'm not even helping people what I set out to do. So he sold the pharmacy and opened up one of the nation's first combined compounding pharmacies and functional medicine practice. And those two things are different.
How so?
Compounding is, so Mike is a pharmacist, right, running the compounding pharmacy. He basically is customizing medicine. Think about like 100 years ago. Probably our grandpa was doing.
Yeah, I mean, there's some ties to like old school apothecary, mortar and pestle. So compounding it's so unique. I mean, we really fill a void that conventional pharmacies cannot. So we still work with, normal medications, not all the time, but sometimes, and we're able to formulate them clean of, certain filler ingredients. So a lot of patients who have sensitivities to certain things, we're able to, we'll compound liquids, topicals, capsules.
So I'm sure you must get a ton of clients or a ton of patients that have really struggled with like conventional medicine.
Exactly.
That don't, they're not getting the treatment that they need, and they're looking for a different answer, and that's when they come to you guys.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and so sometimes we're pointing the patients in the direction of doctors that we work with. So it's this whole community, and our presence is really made by having good relationships with doctors.
So the doctors that you do have relationship with, are they more on the same path of thinking that you guys are on, and that's why you have that relationship?
For the most part, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what is like the difference between, like what are the two kind of pharmacies you said? Sorry.
Conventional and compounding, but then there's a functional medicine component.
So could you explain like the difference between those and like how they vary off each other and like how they kind of all combine and how you went from one to the other?
With the functional medicine component?
Yeah.
So back in like 2000, that's when my dad, he got exposed to bioidentical hormones, which is like natural hormone replacement. That's what led him down into the compounding space. And so he started his compounding practice again 23 years ago. And about 10 years ago, he completed his training in functional medicine. And functional medicine is all about root cause medicine. So it's all about understanding what's driving these chronic conditions, and instead of just treating symptoms, but really understanding what's going on at the most basic physiological level, and how can we use lifestyle, diet, nutritional supplementation, sometimes medications, to try and change what's going on, again, at the root level. So that's what functional medicine is. And with the compounding aspect, again, we're able to customize everything from dosage to dosage form. So it's a lot of, it's like kids in the playground, like coming up with new ideas. Like every patient, it's a new patient. We have to formulate a specific compound for that specific person.
I feel like it's a little like a science project for each patient. Like different things. It's like I obviously I know from my brain injury and like stuff like that, being in the hospital for 4 months, like different medicine affects me different ways. Like, oh, that medicine worked very well, and then these other medicines, like, oh, these gave me crazy thoughts, or these gave me these bad side effects, and like so like that's like but some doctors like thing that was different with me was like you need to take this medicine because like I obviously needed them to heal, but like once I got out of the hospital I had more relief. Like I realized like when you're taking ibuprofen 3 times a day and it destroys your stomach, but it's what I needed because it stopped my bones from growing. Like when I was the head atrophic growth on my arm, so I needed to take ibuprofen 3 times a day, and it absolutely tore up my stomach. But like you don't realize it till you get out, and then you're like, geez, I'm taking this, I'm not eating enough, and it's just destroying my inside. So like I feel like you guys are kind of like a solution to that, to kind of like find an easier way to treat things and just keep your body healthy while taking medicine just naturally. Is that correct?
And it's not easy because
Oh, it's definitely not
everyone
easy,
is
no.
so unique that it takes a while. But you brought something up that's important. People usually seek us out when they've tried everything. A lot of patients have literally been looking for solutions for a decade and have experienced all these side effects. And so they're so hopeful when they finally learn about what we do, because they realize like, whoa, there is a different way of thinking that's maybe not the traditional medical model. That's
Yep.
not particularly it's a little more one size fits all. Some doctors do think out of the box, but it's hard for them to. They don't have a lot of time. And then the pharmaceutical model, it's like, you basically have a prescription for different dosages, but you're not able to customize some of those other things.
Max said it was like a science project and you guys are kind of experimenting. Do you feel like the science behind this functional medicine is just like very clear? And I really don't know too much about this topic, but is the research there, is the science behind it to back these ingredients that you have in these?
So there's two separate things. I'll get to the Feel Good Lab in a second because that's the business that spun out of what they do. They're
Okay.
like the core. They're working with patients in the pharmacy every day. Your question about functional medicine, it is such a new, it's basically 10 years ago when my dad first got his degree in this. Like there was nobody talking about this. Now a lot of people are, because we understand. Bad analogy. If you have foot pain, the conventional model is going to have you rate your pain on a 1 to 10 and give you a pain reliever or a painkiller. Opioids, NSAIDs, like ibuprofen, like you mentioned, but that does nothing to address what's actually causing the pain. So if your pain is chronic and hasn't gone away in over 6 months, oftentimes there's a root cause that a painkiller is not helping. The analogy is you might have a rock in your shoe.
Yeah.
But nobody's doing the diagnostics to go that step further. And so the whole purpose of functional medicine is doing the diagnostics, doing all the testing to understand what could be causing it, and then making those oftentimes it's the lifestyle changes, which are the hardest. People do want to take a pill to get better,
easy.
but there's almost no pill that exists that doesn't have some sort of side effect and repercussion downstream, especially when you take them every day.
Well, and that makes me a question. I honestly just came to my head right now. As you're saying this it's a new style of medicine. I feel it's very, what's the word? Millennial. I feel like it's a very millennial medicine.
Definitely.
I feel like it's like all you see on like when you're on your social medias now, you're scrolling through like, oh, this, like you guys are obviously a growing company, but like there's a lot of companies out there that are like trying to get this plant-based medicine or vegan medicine. I feel it's a very millennial, and just like, and I just want to know your thoughts on that, because I know we all have different thoughts on it, but that's just kind of like the vibe I got from just like these new medicines before we recorded the podcast, and I want to know what your
When we talk about the Feel Good Lab, totally agree. Like our consumer is a little healthier, but when you look at who Mike and my dad treat in the pharmacy,
it's
what's
everybody.
the
different.
demographic? Not even. I think it's older.
It's older. Yeah, it's typically the older population that we're treating. And back to your question about functional medicine and is it research based? And yeah, it is. I mean, there's so much data out there. My dad, he always jokes, because back when he was our age, my age, if he wanted to find something out, he had to go to the library. And now we have access to so much information at our fingertips.
Endless amount of information.
Yeah, so it's just, I mean, he's obviously spent the thousands of hours researching, published research, looking at individual nutrients and how it relates to certain conditions. And, that's what functional medicine is all about, because the research and data is there. It's just big pharma has never really been able to take that information and patent it.
Do you think that's why it's a new form of thinking or a new form of medicine, because we have all of this information, like these certain ingredients do these benefits, but this is kind of just known to the general population more recently because of the new information and the access to information we have? Is it becoming more popular that way?
I would say no, because all of the ingredients we have, and again, we haven't even gotten to the Feel Good Lab and what it is, but like we have all these great natural ingredients in our
Yep.
formula. We take them from Eastern medicine, like ancient Chinese herbs.
Oh, okay.
I mean, this has been used before the United States existed.
Okay.
Almost all of these plants and other compounds that are natural. So I feel like it's always a pendulum, and think about, you mentioned like the younger demographic. It's because the pendulum swung so far. There's 2 brand new shows on Netflix at the same exact time about Purdue Pharma and the opioid epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
So now all of a sudden the pendulum shifted to like, the pharma industry, and it probably hopefully peaked in like the 90s, early 2000s, and now we're realizing the repercussions of that. And the pendulum's swinging. Pharma is definitely not bad, and I take Advil, ibuprofen when I need it, but if I took it 3 times a day, those side effects would just be catastrophic. And so there's a balance. So we're seeing the pendulum here. Now it's swinging back, and I think, it's always going to go back and forth.
So the functional medicine, it's not new. It's been used for many years, but it's just not popular, and you guys are kind of
Popularizing?
popularizing it.
I feel like
twister.
I feel like
Yeah.
it also I feel like it probably doesn't make as much money as big pharma either. Is that true?
Well, let's put it this way, right? Let's just pretend that we can cure your ailment. I'm not saying that's what they can do, but let's just pretend that.
Yeah.
How much money do you make?
Exactly. Yeah.
You cured something.
Yeah.
You would pay every dime you'd have.
Yeah.
You would, but what about if we could give you something that just masks the symptoms but doesn't make the root cause go away? How much money can you make then? You have to take it for the rest of your life.
That's a better perspective.
And I'm not saying pharma is evil and that's what they do,
Yeah.
but here's the big point. The pharmaceutical companies are mostly, I think all of them, publicly traded stocks. That means they have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders to maximize profit.
Yeah.
That's literally, if you're a CEO of a pharma company and you're not maximizing profit, the shareholders will fire you to put someone else in because they're invested to maximize profit. They're not maximizing the well-being of humanity. So for us, we're naive to be like, they need to look out for us. They clearly are trying to make as much money as they can, and I believe most of them do that by having a big positive impact.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have 2 drugs that you can put money towards, and one of them is going to make $1 billion because it reduces blood pressure over the course of someone's life and they have to keep taking it, and another one is going to make $1 million because it cures XYZ disease, which one's going to get the funding?
Yeah, and that's why I'm glad I brought that up, because I mean, obviously you guys are both in different fields, so I'm sure you guys have obviously talked about this several times. Like, as you're an entrepreneur and slowly growing your business, but then you see big pharma because they get the billions and billions of dollars because they've been backed by the government, they've been backed by people for so many years, and not so many people know about this new medicine, like the new lotions and stuff. Like, you don't have to take these pills to make you feel better. Like, there's a much simpler way to do it. And like, so like you guys obviously probably both talk about that, about your work, I'm sure, and bounce ideas off each other, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, these guys are the core of what we do. I'm like, I'm the face and the sales and the operations behind building the brand of the Feel Good Lab.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a pharmacist. I'm not a scientist. I'm an engineer. Sure, I like dabbling in that stuff, and I understand it to a level to be able to talk about it, but I get to rely on them. Like, the work they do over decades with patients, real patients, I get to take the best of that and then bring it through the brand, the Feel Good Lab. And that's probably a good time to tell the audience, like, what is the Feel Good Lab? We make natural over-the-counter pain relievers based on the work that my dad and brother have done treating chronic pain in the pharmacy. There's 2 big things that we learned. If we can deliver medicine through the skin, specifically for pain relief, you don't have to take those pills that can be catastrophic to your GI tract, like you talked about, all the side effects, as well as delivering that potent medicine to the rest of the body when you might have an issue in a localized area. So delivering pain relief locally, specifically pain. Pain's a great example because you typically have a local issue. You can deliver the medicine locally, can reduce the side effects and increase the efficacy at the spot. The other big piece is when they started dealing with natural ingredients versus just the pharmaceuticals, there was a big breakthrough because efficacy went up. And the big epiphany was my dad told a story at dinner of a patient who tried the prototype of this for the first time. It's all natural. It doesn't have those potent pharmaceuticals. She called back the pharmacy in tears because it was the first thing that ever worked. And I said, Dad, like I was so naive to how hard this is. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like the Feel Good Lab was pretty much born right there. It was like, we need to get this out to the rest of the world.
Yeah, I'm so excited to try this. So thank you, man, for getting us some stuff.
You're welcome.
So
we'll talk about that later. But so like, how long has the Feel Good Lab been going? And like, what growth have you seen? Like, what are some of the struggles and like some of the best things that you've gone through? Like, obviously as an entrepreneur.
The struggles are more fun to talk about, to be honest. That's like I have this belief. Success and failure lead to the same place, which is dissatisfaction. So like whether you succeed or you fail, you're going to be dissatisfied at some point in the future, right?
Because you're always going to want more.
Yeah, you're always going to want more. So like the failures are way cooler to talk about because the successes oftentimes it's like lightning strikes and people are like, we got on QVC and this is how you do it. It's like, nah, like the amount of luck that went into that and timing and all, but then the failures, you actually typically are more responsible for those.
But that's
and people relate to that more too.
Yeah.
Especially the challenging parts in your life and growing a business is like that kind of what shapes who you are and what your business is kind of about in a sense.
But I actually want to talk about the QVC adventure and like, cause I'm a nerd. I love my like Shark Tank and stuff like that. And obviously like a lot of those things are on like QVC, a lot of those products and stuff. So like, what was it like to like make a deal with a major like worldwide company like that? And like, I'm sure there were some struggles. I'm sure that's probably. So like, would you like to talk about like your story about getting the marketing to go to QVC, one of the biggest marketing agencies or brands in the world?
It was a few pieces. One is it took me a year and a half to get on.
Yeah.
We were in, then we were out, then we had claims we had to change on the packaging. It was crazy. Ultimately, the reason I got in is because of him and my dad. They told me straight up, I'm a pretty good salesman. I got in, I sold a couple people. They brought me to the VP. The VP sits down, she listens to the pitch, she goes, that sounds really great. I actually want the product. But we're not putting you on. This category sucks. It used to be great for us 10 years ago. Everybody we've tried has failed miserably.
So the market wasn't there at the time.
The market was there. All of the people that watch QVC are our exact demographic. They lost trust. They didn't trust a slimy sales guy coming on selling a new snake oil.
Yeah.
So that's what most of the other brands that they brought on were. I'm not saying all of them. I don't actually even know, but I would suspect they were. Big difference was I said, listen, give me a shot. Nobody is the type of story that we are with the credibility that Mike and my dad bring and then the storytelling and the passion that I bring. Let me come on because I know that we can tell this story in an authentic way that makes the customer build trust and ultimately try our product because now I have 7 minutes to go and pitch. Versus if I run an ad on Facebook and I've got 10 seconds to get your attention and build your trust, hell no. Now I have 7 minutes to build your trust and tell the story.
So they gave you that chance, and that's how you built the trust with QVC.
Correct.
And it
then
performed.
We performed and got new POs and performed and got new POs and then got a new host and didn't perform and they tried to return all my POs
man.
and then fought to get back on. So it's always a game, you know.
How many times have you been on?
Probably 20. I don't know.
That's
something
awesome.
like that.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
It's
time.
huge, yeah.
So your general demographic, you just mentioned that. Is it aches and pains? Like what is the most common thing you see? Who do you help the most and how do you help them?
Well, you see patients every day coming in. Who comes into the pharmacy?
Well, I mean, typically, again, like you said, it's patients who are dealing with acute or chronic issues that just haven't been helped. So they're looking for different solutions. It's kind of interesting. Again, I mentioned, our business thrives with relationships with doctors because the doctors end up sending the patients our way. We have a lot of people who will, by chance just stop by and say, I've lived down the street. I didn't know you guys were here. And then we can tell our story. They get interested, and we might be able to get them on some nutritional supplements, and they go tell their friends, and so it becomes that sort of scenario. But yeah, I mean, our demographic just happens to be primarily, I would say, like older females. Like, we don't have a lot of younger people. I think, females maybe are more open to receiving help than us guys, but
every guy I know I talk to never wants to go see a doctor. They'll
never
just
has
deal
any
with
issues.
It. Yeah.
That's why I want to bring you guys on the podcast too, because I feel like this is something like I know a lot of my friends work out and stuff, and they'll talk about after a long workout, like, oh, this is hurting. I'm trying to like get this out there because like I think this would be people don't understand how helpful this is. Like I obviously know what pain is like, and I feel like if I had like some of this stuff when I was after I broke my arm and not getting operated on for over a month, and then they're yanking on it for an hour straight in therapy, and my arm is absolutely burning. I wish I had something like this when I was in the hospital, and like so that could help, because this would definitely help with my pain relief, like unbelievable.
So we have two real demographics. We call her Battle and Barbara and Healthy Heather. Battle and Barbara is 65 years old with arthritis. She's had it for decades and literally nothing's ever worked. The way I have to communicate with her in marketing and on the phone and the email is way different.
Yes.
I mean, she's my QVC customer. She is tough for good reason. Nothing's worked and she really has lost hope. So she's a little bit angry.
Yeah, why would she trust this new guy that's
100%.
coming up with this
So my
thing she's
number
never
one
heard of
goal
before?
is basically like, what does she need? Is she needs me to really be listening and be there for her and to not sell her, but to really understand where she's coming from and to slowly build the hope, because I think that whether you think you can or you can't, you're often right. So your mindset, like if you come in, like if I give you this product, it could be the greatest product in the world, but if you're like, this won't work, no way it'll work, put it on.
Absolutely.
See, I told you it didn't work. Right?
Yeah.
Versus if she's like, oh my goodness, this is new. I haven't tried anything like this. Oh, you want me to clean my skin before because we want the great ingredients to absorb? Oh, that's interesting. Like none of the other topical products I've tried actually do that. So now she's thinking like, okay, this is different. There is hope. That's a huge part of the game that we play. But the second piece is we have the younger demographic, Healthy Heather. She's a new mom, 35 years old, super into wellness. Maybe she does CrossFit or goes to the gym. The thing is that she doesn't have is time. So she's like, when we educate her, she's like looking for exactly who we are, but she doesn't really have time to come and find us. The other problem is Battle and Barbara's in chronic pain. So there's another quote that I love, and you would resonate with this big time. A rich man wants 10,000 things, but a sick man wants one. So like when you're in the hospital hurt, are you thinking about all the aspirations you have in your new truck and all these cool things?
No, I'm thinking about getting myself better.
That's it, one thing.
I'm thinking about the best for me and the best for me and the people around me, and what's going to improve my life and the people around me's life. And that's why I'm doing this podcast too, to help my relationships with people. I have great relationships with a lot of people, but I want to help people out there hear people's stories so they don't give up. Like if they hit a speed bump in the road, they're not going to go. If you get a flat tire, you don't just stop. You go change the tire and try to fix it and keep going. Exactly. And that's my attitude, and it always will be my attitude, because I know several people that they give up on things because you get tough. But everything in life is tough. So if you fight through it and you work through it, then you're gonna find the sweet side, and you're gonna realize, oh, after all this work, then I'm getting this out of the deal. So it's so worth it.
And building off of that too, I mean, you mentioned how you talk to these different demographics, but part of being successful with sales, in my experience, is genuinely wanting to help the other person. Do you kind of feel the same way? Like you're more successful when you can genuinely feel like, I know I can help this person?
Well, I think I said earlier why I'm good at sales and I like sales, because I care.
Yeah.
So, and same with Mike. You know, people come in all the time to the pharmacy to get advice because they meet Mike. At first, I'm sure both of us are like, what's this young guy going to tell me? But then they see like, wow, they're pretty smart. They really care about me. Like they're taking time. Like it's not just about the sale. And that's what's different about our brand than, say, the Icy Hots and the BioFreezes of the world. That's what I can tell on QVC. You know, like our passion and our mission, we prove it every day in the way we do customer service, in everything that we do. And I heard this cool thing. It was like a brand is, imagine if you take a product and a brand and you think about them doing something completely different. If you can imagine what that experience would be like, they have a brand. So the example was like, what would it look like if Nike had a hotel? And you can literally imagine what that hotel would be like. That's the brand, right?
Sure. You can kind of see their morals and where they're headed, I guess.
Yeah. And so like, but then there's other companies that you think of, like you try to spin it the other way, and you like, I don't know, what would it look like if Marriott created a restaurant? Like it's not as exciting and sexy. So it's kind of when you look at the hierarchy, or like Apple and a Nike versus some of these other brands, we obviously aspire to be more like that. And so that's what we think about. Like it's every single little thing that you do in the customer experience to give them an idea and build trust of like, you know, who you are.
Building the brand.
Building the brand.
That's awesome.
And so like, and I was just thinking, so what's it been like working with your dad and for your dad? I mean, he obviously, I mean, I know your dad very well too, and he's a great guy. And I mean, obviously you guys both have great relationships with it. So like, what's been the ups and downs of working with your father?
I got a couple, but he works probably closer with him.
No, I work
He
very
answers
close
to
with
him.
Right. I mean, he's been a great boss. I'm not just saying that to get a pay raise, but
I know your dad super well. He's one of the
He's a great mentor. He lets me, you know, he gives me the freedom to make decisions.
And I feel like that's huge in your business.
Yeah. he lets me flap my wings, and you know, sometimes I fail with some of the decisions I make, but that's part of, like you said, that's part of the process. So you learn best through that.
Having that mentor is so important, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Really guide your decisions and affirm your thoughts.
And he went through the same thing with his dad, who was also a pharmacist.
Mm-hmm.
So they had trials and tribulations like most father-son work dynamics go. So he definitely learned a lot through that, and I mean it shows. It's been 6 years. We haven't had any issues, and I mean that sincerely, not one.
That's awesome. So coming back to this product though, plant-based ingredients. The ingredients you used are made to absorb into the skin more naturally than other products, correct?
Yeah, and the idea is right. So here's a little breakdown. Mike's the pharmacist, so he'd explain it probably more scientifically than me, but it's called the gate theory of pain is one piece of it. It's the reason we're an FDA-approved drug, just like ICF, Biofreeze, Bengay, Aspercream, all the other products in the category. What that means is, good analogy, you have pain in your shoulder, and I stomp on your toe. The pain in your toe is going to overwhelm the brain, and it's not going to feel the pain in the shoulder. The nerve signals can't handle more than one.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right?
I've experienced that
so
before.
So temperature is something that the body prioritizes. My stupid theory is like if you broke your leg in Antarctica, you're going to die of like the cold, not of the broken bone. So the nerve signals prioritize temperature. So when you use an ingredient like menthol, which is cooling, or capsaicin, which is warming from peppers, that temperature sensation up the nerve blocks the pain signal temporarily. So that's why we're an FDA drug. It's based on like a 1987 monograph that makes us able to make those claims. Reason I start there is that's what every other product in the category does. They have 10, 15, 20% menthol or capsaicin. That gives you that an overwhelming sensation and literally makes you smell like a cough drop. Our product uses 1% menthol.
Okay.
Because menthol is a great natural ingredient that absorbs, it helps other ingredients absorb, and that nice soothing, subtle sensation does help take the edge off. We want to do that. But 99% of our formula, 98.75%, are these natural ingredients like turmeric, arnica, devil's claw, boswellia, calendula, yerba mate. These natural ingredients that have been used in Eastern medicine for decades, centuries, that help underlying root causes. Out of control inflammation, poor blood flow and circulation. If we can improve those things, we can actually help the root cause of the pain.
Absolutely, with the blood flow is huge.
And blood flow, and as well as like we have a product for athletes, our sport recovery lotion. It's the same idea. When you overuse a muscle when you're working out, you want to basically get the blood flow in there to clean it out, and you also want to reduce that inflammation, so it can help with your recovery, so that the next day you go to the gym, you're not sore, you can perform better. And it's the same for athletes or people in chronic pain. Our ingredients are really addressing those main issues.
So, I mean, especially the type of ingredient you use, I'm trying to think back to different supplements that I've used, and lower quality supplements, lead to more bloating or just diet in general. If you have a poor quality diet, you're going to have more bloating and less function with how your body's supposed to react and less homeostasis. So, what other types of products do you use? Do you recommend anything for people that struggle with bloating? Other kinds of diet, nutrition tips?
This is where I step back.
Okay.
We got the guy right here.
Yeah, so supplements, right? There's such a disparity from one brand to the next, and you really got to learn to read labels, which is not something people are taught. So when you're looking, let's talk about a B vitamin, right? That's something common people take, or a multivitamin that contains a lot of B vitamins. There are very specific forms of B vitamins that are superior to what you might find in a cheaper supplement.
Okay.
And so the body, like our bodies, we all have, issues with genetic issues, metabolizing certain things, and methylation, which is just, again, a fancy word for one of those processes, is required for a lot of B vitamins. And so the top shelf supplement companies are going to use all of these methylated B vitamins, which are in their most active form. You take it and they start doing what they're supposed to do. The cheaper supplements are not using these methylated forms, so your body's going to have to work through it and convert them to the active form. So that's just a simple, I guess, example. And vitamin B12, right? A lot of supplements. So if someone's watching this and they take B12, read the label. If it says like cyanocobalamin, that's B12 attached to cyanide.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Which sounds wild. Now, the dose of cyanide is typically not large enough to to elicit
Sure.
a negative response, but how do we know that?
Mhm.
You know, why are they using that? Because it's super cheap.
So how would a regular Joe Schmo like myself, who's only reading macronutrients, start to understand ingredients and where really I should be getting these supplements from and where I can improve my diet?
Well, if, you know, someone's watching this podcasts,
Okay.
you know, there's a lot of good high-level thinkers when it comes to biohacking.
Mhm.
You know, like Ben Greenfield was one that got me into it when I got, you know, early on into the space. Paul Saladino is another one. Carnivore MD is his name. But
What
there's
about
a
the
lot
Feel
of
Good Lab podcast?
Oh, the Feel Good Lab podcast, of course. How could I miss that? There's
Player
a lot of
Cards
information.
podcast, no.
all that information is there for people
Okay.
to know if they're interested. You know, and if they don't want to spend time doing that, then, you know, come to Vernon, Connecticut, come walk into Pioneer Health, and I'll talk to them.
One of our missions is, this is written on the board in my office, I envision a day where our brand is not known for selling products. Because I think that if you have the right education, you don't need our products.
Yeah, they're just making orders. You'll never have to do any more sales.
But not even that. It's like your diet and your lifestyle has you in such a healthy place that you don't need supplements, you don't
Okay.
need pain relievers. So I want the Feel Good Lab to almost be the WebMD for wellness. Everything you just asked, I would love us to be the place that you can trust and go to
For the education.
for the education. Not that we're there yet, but like Mike, I mean, I don't know a better person in the world than Mike when it comes to the supplement side. I don't know a better person in the world than my dad when it comes to the genetic side and the biochemistry and this crazy understanding of the processes and the different supplements that you could take to help with those. But like that's kind of where we want to go as a brand, is to bring that mainstream.
So you must do so much educating before you even try to tell someone, okay, you should take this. Or instead of just telling someone to take this, you show them why, and that way they can really be a believer,
I mean,
understand the implementation
Mike
of it.
would answer this better, but I don't think that's what people want. Most people like you guys, yeah, and probably like your audience,
Sure.
most people, like think about who the average American is.
They just want to instant fix it.
They just want to instant fix it. They want you to tell them what to take.
Yeah.
You know, most people just want that, which is fine. So you got to meet people where they're at. Because one of the flaws I've made starting the brand early on is I used to think people thought like me. Not that I'm special, but we're all special. We're all way unique. And the average person, when you look at a bell curve,
Sure.
is usually not you. In some instances, there are. I'm average in a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But when it comes to these topics, so not average. And so you need to actually understand your customer. That's why we created these personas, Healthy Heather, Battle and Barbara. We got a whole list of things of who they are. And I got to like wear my hat of like, okay, who is she actually? Because she's definitely not thinking about things the same way I am. And then you got to talk to them in that way. And that's really what marketing is. You know, it's understanding that.
That's super interesting. Yeah, I feel like on the side of what I'm doing right now, I think it's really important for me that I get to teach people about why I'm asking them to do the things that they're doing. But just like you said, a lot of people, they don't give a shit. You know, they really don't care. They just want that instant fix. They want the results, and they'll do whatever whatever you tell them to do because you have that trust with them.
That's why they're not you.
That's correct. Yeah. So
So, is there anything else you would like to add, do you think, or?
Well, I mean, one thing I would say when we're talking about the natural pain cream and the sport recovery lotion, most drugs are actually derived in some way, shape, or form from plants.
okay.
And so it's really interesting if you look at the history of, you know, pharmaceutical companies and where they derive, like where did they, you know, start to think about ibuprofen? Where did they start to think about some of these antibiotics? Well, or morphine, you know, like because that morphine comes from plants. And a lot of other drugs, again, are derived from plants themselves. So when you mentioned like research, you know, is this backed by research? If you go on PubMed and you type in some of these ingredients, they're going to pull up thousands of studies. Now you have to, you know, understand how to read studies and, you know, what does it all mean? But there's so much data out there supporting each one of those ingredients, and you can eat, like, what's interesting, like take turmeric for example.
Sure.
You know, these plants have constituents or compounds in them, just like hemp has CBD. Turmeric has curcumin, and curcumin is sort of like an ibuprofen, like an anti-inflammatory. It works on very similar mechanisms, but what's interesting is a lot of the side effects, because with these drugs they try to make it stronger. You know, that's always they want it to work easier, faster, all that, and it comes with side effects. You know, it's it's hard for us to replicate nature because there's such a genius in nature. We can only even understand so much. So when we use these natural compounds and we use them synergistically, we can elicit such a positive response without
The
without some
drawbacks.
of the negative. Yeah.
Versus other conventional medicine, they haven't even really looked at that side of things, and they're more focused in on just getting the result.
And getting money.
Yeah.
I didn't say it. You did.
I'm sorry. I don't mean
You
it
know,
personally at all, but I just feel
drugs-
I've lost a cousin, I've lost family members to overdose, and it's just
Yeah.
like it's awful because it's a disease, but they're handing out these medicines like they're Tic Tacs. I know nothing you guys can control, but it's sad. It's the way pharma is, and like because that's how they make their money. Like I have nothing. Obviously, I have something against them, but like I respect people who work in that field always because you're helping so many people. But like you can't control it because some people just get caught in that line, and it's
And a good way to look at it is for acute care, like if you break your leg or like you have an accident,
Yeah.
the pharmaceutical, the conventional medical model, it's world class, especially in this country. I don't think there's a better place in the world to be.
Oh,
but
yeah,
for
definitely.
chronic care, for things that are chronic in nature, I don't think we do a very good job in the conventional model of understanding the root cause and thinking outside the box. We try to take the same model for acute care and apply it to chronic care, and I think that's where we're seeing a lot of these issues. If you have to take a pill every single day for a year, 2 years, a decade, that's not good.
Yeah, how is that natural in any shape or form? Like, how is that a long-term fix?
Right. And now in some instances, it may be the best solution,
Sure.
but we should not just rest on that. We should figure out a way for us. Like, I don't think that we were created by whoever created us or whatever created us to have to rely on these things
Yeah.
to be healthy. I think it's actually quite the opposite. If we have most of our needs met, like our body is the most amazing tool. Just like Mike said, we can't even understand nature and how these compounds are put together. Think about our bodies.
Yeah,
it is so amazing.
People are still learning stuff new about our bodies every day and stuff too. How to cure cancers and all these sicknesses. Like, who knows what's going to be in 10, 15 years from now, what they're going to be coming out with. I mean, you see the things coming out today. It's just, especially with AI and all this stuff, I mean, who knows what's going to be in 10, 15 years.
Right.
Or 50, 100 years. I mean, it could be...
Well, it's like that hockey stick phenomenon, right? It's like as technology advances, like our understanding is advancing so fast and so rapidly.
Yeah, and we just don't even have we don't have the littlest understanding of it because it's way of our league, but it's insane.
And I think that there's been a shift, especially recently, like through COVID and everything. I think people are sort of opening their eyes to other solutions, which is what needs to happen. Like, there are still a good portion of our population that they just want to take their pill and move on. They don't want to change the way they're living life, and it's hard for us to help those people.
Yeah,
we can try and convince them,
but
they have to convince themselves. So, if we get more and more people to get on board with like, what I eat actually does affect me and my health.
Well, I think it's been that way for so long, right? It's been that way for so long. That's the mainstream thinking. But, you're kind of having one group telling everyone this is how it should be done, versus if you have multiple different perspectives and multiple different groups and multiple ways of thinking, you're probably going to find a more legit answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Oh, I agree with that completely.
And the challenge we have at the Feel Good Lab is, so we launched with these topical products treating pain. They have the natural portion to them, but really people are looking for that silver bullet, and they come across our brand oftentimes and they think of us that way when that's not who we want to be. We have a trademark and a tagline. It's fight pain with wellness. What we really want to be is that educational piece, but in the meantime, we take the work they're doing. The number one thing that you can do to fight chronic inflammatory-based pain, like arthritis, is not using our product. This product is, in my opinion, the best OTC pain reliever. It's understanding what foods in your diet are causing inflammation, cleaning up your diet. Then maybe it's nutritional supplements, looking at your lifestyle and your sleep and your stress levels. Then lastly, it's the pain cream that you use. But the hierarchy is so shifted. So the younger demographic sees that and gets it. The older demographic, they want the pain cream. What we do is we educate both sides. So it's a balance. And so we launched a line of nutritional supplements. Things like curcumin, which is that constituent in turmeric, vitamin D, fish oil, ingredients that, again, can improve your overall wellness and get your body into homeostasis so it can actually perform optimally, which includes the recovery and the inflammatory piece. And then we launched a food inflammation test in partnership with the pharmacy, where you do a simple finger prick It measures the foods in your diet that are
Really?
causing inflammation, and this
I
has
have to
been
try that.
game-changing.
Yeah, I have to come to you guys.
Absolutely game-changing. You do it right at home. You
Wow.
order it on our website. We mail you the thing. You do a finger prick. There's a little bit of an education that we give you because you want to make sure your blood's flowing. So it takes a second if you do that. If you don't, you're sitting there squeezing, trying to get droplets on this little card. But you mail it into the lab, and 10 days later, they give you the results. All of the foods in your diet. And what's crazy is every person we've tested has at least one healthy food that in their body is potentially causing inflammation. Mike mentioned turmeric, one of the most potent anti-inflammatories that we know of. In many people, many is like 10%, say, just on the anecdotal data of all the results we've gotten, they'll have turmeric show up on the test as pro-inflammatory for them. Everybody's different. There's no one size fits all. Like, you have an inflammation issue, here's turmeric. No, we don't know that. You got to try it, and maybe in your body it's actually more detrimental than helpful.
Wow, that's awesome, because so many people are just looking for that quick fix. But if you're really analyzing their problem and you could see what is giving them that problem, then you could give them so much better information. You know?
More customized, more curtailed to them. Yeah. And with the food inflammation test, one thing I want to point out is, if something shows up inflammatory right now, does not mean 10 years from now it's going to be inflammatory. Yeah. So the immune system's fascinating, and understanding why are these things showing up as inflammatory is important. And usually it's in reference to the gut wall. And is there permeability, meaning is there kind of like leaky gut, people will call it, but it's a big buzzword. And do we have undigested foods or undigested proteins that are getting through the gut wall and they shouldn't be? Now the immune system is attacking that as a foreign antigen, and then it creates like a stored immune response. So every time you get exposed to that particular protein or whatever it may be, your body's having an inflammatory response to that.
So say, for example, oftentimes, there's like two different types of bloating in my mind. One would be like a general gut discomfort bloating where you have the big belly kind of, and the other type of bloating that I get sometimes is almost like the fat under the skin. You're retaining more water. So for me personally, I'm watching my sodium levels, and I know stress can play into that, but it could possibly be something more along the lines of, in my diet, this doesn't sit well with my body, and I don't know that yet.
Right. So the whole key, like with this test, is identify the foods currently causing inflammation. Take certain things to try and heal the gut. Probiotics, certain amino acids that can help heal the gut lining. It's a pretty, it can be an intense protocol for quite some time, but it's worth it if it pays out in the end. And yeah, things you mentioned, because you mentioned sodium. I would say I'm actually a fan of sodium when it's in its natural state.
Sure.
If you get a good natural salt, unrefined, not iodized per se, but we use Redmond real salt. It's from Utah, and it's 99% sodium chloride, but it's got like 80 other trace minerals, which sodium is essential. Without sodium, we wouldn't live. We need it. So sodium's one thing that's like been demonized.
Well, with so much activity, especially with me and how much sweating I do, and my clients, I really recommend that they have a sodium supplement on the days that they need it. But at what point is it too much? And I don't know really where to go from there.
So when it's unopposed sodium, and what I mean by that is you're not getting the other electrolytes that you need, because it's all balance. Just like most things in the body, it's all balance. So if you have too much sodium, if you look at processed foods, sodium content's typically really high.
Crazy.
The other, magnesium content is pretty much non-existent. And that's just one of many other minerals that we need. So if you're getting, a good amount of sodium in your diet, but you're also getting these other minerals that you need, most likely sodium's not going to be an issue. But if you have unopposed sodium, it could become a problem.
And the test that we're talking about, that could show us our mineral balance?
Not that particular test, but there are, in like the functional medicine space, there's micronutrient and mineral testing that's usually done. So this is stuff that, again, patients, unfortunately, insurance doesn't cover it, so a lot of it's out of pocket. But these are patients who they're willing to spend the money, because what would you put on like a price tag on
your health?
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. And if you start seeing results, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I can't wait to dig into that a little deeper. I'm really interested in that.
And I think this is a perfect time to end. I just want to thank you guys so much for coming on here and educating us. And I want to make sure you guys go follow the Feel Good Lab on Instagram, subscribe to them on YouTube, and go follow Mike Gresh and Ryan Gresh on Instagram. Go to the Fast Fit Academy. Follow Play Your Cards Podcast. Please, if you like this video, it'd mean everything to me if you could give it a share. And I just want to thank everybody so much for coming on and giving the listen. I know this is a longer one, but we're going to be bigger and better episodes soon. And this is one of my favorite ones yet. And just thank you so much, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Meeting you guys is awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Feel good.
Yeah, go get the Feel Good Lab.
We'll create a discount code for you guys too that you can put in the link for your listeners.